Part 1. The Haunted Hospital ****. Arrival ****. The night had a heaviness about it. The kind of silence that doesn't soothe, but presses against the chest and ears like an invisible weight. The sprawling building of Dhaka Medical College's old hospital wing stood at the far edge of the compound, dark and skeletal against the weak glow of streetlights. Mehdi Olin, a 23-year-old fresh intern, clutched his stethoscope nervously. His first night duty. He had long dreamt of becoming a doctor, but the reality of the internship had only begun to sink in when his name was written on the duty roster, midnight to 6 a.m., in the old East Wing. Everyone warned him. The senior residents, the nurses, even the janitors. Greater than stay away from Ward 317. It has been locked for years. If you hear something from inside, just walk away. Mehdi laughed at them in the cafeteria earlier that evening. I don't believe in ghosts. Patients die every day in hospitals. If their souls linger, we'd be living in a graveyard already. But that confidence began to erode as soon as he stepped inside. The East Wing The East Wing had been partially abandoned after a fire years ago. The higher floors were functional, but the ground and second floors still carried the smell of damp plaster, mold, and something metallic like dried blood. The lights flickered dimly, humming like flies. The clock on his wrist showed 12:47 a.m. He had a file in hand. Notes to check 3 patients recovering from surgery. Nothing extraordinary. He told himself he would finish rounds quickly and rest in the doctor's room. His shoes clicked on the long corridor tiles. Every sound echoed back unnaturally loud, as if the walls were amplifying him, mocking his steps. On the walls hung faded portraits of the founders of the hospital. Their eyes seemed to follow him. Then it began. Somewhere down the corridor, faint and hollow, came a voice. A woman's voice, greater than doctor, please, help me. Mehdi froze mid-step. The air seemed to drop in temperature instantly. His breath fogged before him. No, he muttered under his breath, it's my imagination. Just tiredness. But the voice came again, louder, trembling. Greater than doctor. My pain, he turned slowly. And there it was, the door marked 317. The forbidden room The legends said Ward 317 had been sealed after the death of a young woman in childbirth 15 years ago. The doctors had allegedly been careless. She had bled out screaming. Her family created a scandal. Strange things began to happen afterward. Nurses claimed they saw her shadow in the corridors. Orderlies heard screams at night. Eventually, the hospital locked it up. And yet. Tonight the lock was broken. The metal hung loose. The door ajar, as if inviting him in. Mehdi's rational mind whispered, maybe someone broke in. Maybe a vagrant. Maybe a patient wandered off, but his body trembled anyway. He pulled out his phone, turned on the flashlight, and pushed the door gently. The hinges groaned. The room was dust-ridden, sheets covering old furniture, broken medical equipment in corners. But in the middle on the rusted bed frame lay a figure under a white sheet. Mehdi's throat tightened. He thought it must be a prank, a leftover mannequin from training. He reached closer, heart hammering. The sheet shifted. It wasn't empty. The patient asterisk, a pale hand, thin as bone, emerged slowly from beneath the sheet. It trembled as though struggling to move. Then the rest of the figure sat up, revealing a woman's face, sunken cheeks, hollow sockets glowing faintly red, lips cracked like dried soil. She whispered, greater than Dr. Are you here to save me? Mehdi stumbled back, nearly dropping his phone. Who are you? This room is empty. Asterisk. The woman tilted her head. The movement slow, unnatural, like a puppet on strings. Asterisk. They left me here. They forgot me. My baby cried until the walls swallowed the sound. And now, every night, I wait for someone to listen. Her gaze fixed on him, unblinking, pulling him into those bleeding eyes. Mehdi wanted to run. Every instinct screamed at him to escape. But his feet felt rooted to the floor. Asterisk. I can call for help, he stammered. I'll get the nurse. Asterisk. No. Her voice cracked like glass shattering. The windows in the room trembled. No one must come. Only you. You must feel what I felt. The blood, the fear, the silence. Asterisk. She slid off the bed. Her bare feet touched the floor without sound. The transformation. Asterisk. The room darkened, though no switch had been touched. His phone light flickered and died, plunging everything into thick gloom. Only the woman's faintly glowing face remained visible, floating closer. Mehdi backed against the wall. This isn't real. I don't believe. Asterisk. Her mouth stretched into a smile, too wide, tearing at the corners of her lips until black blood dripped. Asterisk. You don't believe, then look. Asterisk. Suddenly, the bed filled with crimson. Sheets soaked, dripping onto the floor. From nowhere, the sound of an infant's wail pierced the silence, sharp, shrill, echoing endlessly. Asterisk. Mehdi clutched his ears, eyes squeezed shut. But when he opened them, she was inches away, her face hovering before his. The stench of rot filled his nostrils. Asterisk. Doctor. She whispered, her voice now deeper, layered with a chorus of other voices, male and female, young and old. Stay with me forever. Asterisk. A skeletal hand reached for his throat. Cold seeped into his skin, into his veins. Escape. Asterisk. Pure panic broke his paralysis. With a strangled cry, he shoved her away. She stumbled backward unnaturally, bones cracking as her limbs bent the wrong way. The infant's crying grew louder, now accompanied by whispers all around the room. Asterisk. Mehdi bolted for the door. It slammed shut before he reached it. The handle twisted uselessly under his grip. Asterisk. Behind him. The woman's distorted figure rose again, limbs jerking, neck lolling to one side. She crawled toward him on all fours, her head upside down, jaw hanging loose. Asterisk. Mehdi rammed the door with his shoulder. Once, twice, finally, it burst open and he spilled into the corridor. Asterisk. The hall was utterly silent. His breath rasped in his ears. He glanced backward. 317 was closed, the lock intact, as if it had never been broken. The aftermath. Asterisk. By the time dawn broke, Mehdi sat in the doctor's lounge, pale and trembling. His colleagues noticed. Asterisk. First night duty, huh? One nurse smirked. Did you hear her? The woman in 317. Mehedi looked up sharply. You mean? You all know. The nurse shrugged casually. Of course. She always calls the new ones. Some say she chooses who gets to stay in the hospital. And who doesn't. Mehedi's heart froze. You mean? Some don't survive. The nurse didn't answer. She only smiled, eyes strangely hollow, before walking away. Mehedi realized then, with a chill deeper than any ghost's touch, the hospital wasn't just haunted. It was alive, feeding on the interns, the weak, the ones who doubted. And he had been chosen. The Haunted Hospital Part 2. Morning after the sun spilled across the east wing in a weak, gray light, making the cracked paint and rusted bed frames look even more decrepit. Mehedi hadn't slept. His first duty night ended with him staring blankly at the wall of the intern's lounge, still feeling phantom fingers around his throat. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard it again. Greater than Dr. Stay with me. Forever. He told himself it was exhaustion, hallucination, stress. He'd been warned not to let fear get inside his head. But when he walked past Ward 317 that morning, something made him stop. The lock was perfectly intact. The door sealed as though it had never been opened. Yet on the dusty floor just beneath it, he saw wet footprints, small and bare, leading out into the corridor, and vanishing halfway down. His stomach nodded. This wasn't in his imagination. Whispers in daylight. By noon, Mehedi tried to drown himself in work. He checked patients, took vitals, scribbled notes. But even under the harsh daylight, the hospital felt wrong. Whenever he passed an empty ward, he thought he saw movement in the corner of his vision, shadows slipping into walls. The overhead lights flickered whenever he touched a patient's chart. At one point, while adjusting the foreline of an old man, he heard a faint cooing, like a baby crying from a distant room. He froze. The patient stared at him, eyes wide. You hear it too, don't you? The man rasped. Mehedi forced a laugh. It's probably just a child visiting. The old man shook his head slowly. No children here. They're all underground, where the walls still bleed. Mehedi dropped the chart. Underground. But before he could ask, the patient shut his eyes and muttered prayers under his breath. The janitor later that evening. Mehedi found himself lingering outside Ward 317 again, as if some invisible string tied him to that cursed door. That's when he met Jalil, an old janitor sweeping the corridor. Jalil's back was bent, his beard gray, and his eyes seemed too tired to belong to the living. You went in there, didn't you? Jalil's voice was gravelly. Mehedi's throat went dry. I don't know what you're talking about. The janitor smirked without humor. They always send the new ones here. Fresh blood for her to smell. The woman in 317 doesn't forget. Mehedi swallowed hard. Who is she? Jalil leaned on his mop, his gaze far away. 15 years ago, a pregnant woman named Nasima was brought in. Complications during labor. Doctors ignored her screams. She bled until her body turned cold. They say the baby never stopped crying, even after death. The walls. They soaked it all. And now she walks, searching for a doctor who will feel her pain. Mahedi shook his head. That's just folklore. Jalal's expression darkened. Then why did you come out pale as a corpse this morning? Why do you still hear her voice? Mahedi froze. How do you know? The janitor tapped the side of his head. She marks you. Once you've entered her ward, she will follow you. Even outside these halls. Even in your sleep. Night duty again. That night, Mahedi begged the chief resident to switch his shift. The man laughed. Scared already. It's just a building. Ghosts don't kill careers. Laziness does. So Mahedi found himself once again pacing the east wing past midnight. He refused to look at 317. He tried to keep his head down, focused on charts. But the whispers followed him. First faint, then louder, as if echoing from the walls themselves. Doctor. My pain. Stay. He pressed his palms to his ears, but the voices seeped in through his bones. The corridor warped in his vision, lights stretched, walls bent, doors melted. He stumbled and found himself not in the corridor anymore, but standing inside 317 again. The bed was there. The sheets soaked in red, and the crying of the infant, louder than ever. No, he whispered, I didn't open the door. I didn't come in. But the woman appeared anyway. Nasima, her broken body hunched, her hair matted with blood. She crawled toward him, fingernails scraping the tiles. You promised me. You would help. I never promised anything. Mahedi shouted. Her eyes flared. Then bleed for me. She lunged. The mark. Mahedi woke up in the doctor's lounge at dawn, soaked in sweat. His colleagues surrounded him. You fainted in the corridor, one said. We found you lying outside 317. The lock wasn't touched. Mahedi looked at his hands. On his wrist, just above the pulse, was a thin red line like a cut, but deeper, raw, as if scratched by nails. He covered it quickly. The others didn't notice. But he felt it burning under his sleeve. Seeking answers, by afternoon, he hunted down Jalal the janitor again. She touched me, Mahedi whispered, pulling back his sleeve. The red mark glared against his skin. Jalal's face fell. You're marked. She won't stop until you follow her. The scratch binds you to her world. There has to be a way to break it. Mahedi hissed. Jalal sighed, glancing around before leaning closer. The doctors buried her body in the morgue, but not the child. The baby was never found. Some say the hospital hid the truth, walled the corpse away in the underground tunnels so no one would uncover their negligence. Underground tunnels. Jalal nodded. Old morgue passages beneath the east wing, closed after the fire. But still there. If you want answers, you'll have to go down there. But beware, the baby never rests. Descent that night, while the rest of the hospital bustled in the main wards. Mahedi sneaked into the east wing basement. The stairwell smelled of mildew and chemicals. Rats skittered underfoot, at the bottom. A locked iron gate barred his way. But the lock was rusted, brittle. A heavy rock shattered it. The tunnels beyond were narrow and suffocating, lined with peeling paint and dangling pipes. His flashlight cut weak beams through the dust. On the walls, he thought he saw faint handprints, smeared dark brown like dried blood. The deeper he went, the colder the air grew. He could hear water dripping somewhere. Or was it something else? And then came the sound. Not water, crying, a baby's wail, echoing through the tunnels. The underground room, the passage opened into a wide, circular chamber. In the middle stood an old operating table, rusted and broken. Around it were shelves stacked with jars of preserved organs floating in yellowed liquid. The stench of decay made Mehedi gag. But what froze him was the small crib in the corner. Wooden, rotten, but still upright. Inside lay a bundle of cloth, stained dark. As he stepped closer, the cloth stirred. A tiny skeletal hand emerged. Mehedi staggered back. No, it's not real. It's not. The bundle sat up. A faceless infant, skin gray and sagging, its mouth stretching into a void, wailed loud enough to shake the walls. And from the shadows behind it, Nasima appeared. Her head bent, blood dripping from her abdomen. Her voice came in a guttural chorus. You found my child. Now you will stay with us. The choice the air thickened, pressing against his lungs. Mehedi dropped to his knees, gasping. His flashlight flickered and died. Only the infant's glowing eyes illuminated the chamber. Nasima extended her arms. Hold him. Take him. Feel the weight I carried. Only then will your mark fade. Mehedi's hands trembled. If he refused, he knew she would drag him down, tear him apart. But if he accepted, what would happen? With a strangled sob, he reached forward. The infant was placed in his arms. Its body was impossibly heavy, crushing, as though filled with stone. Its skin was ice cold. The mark on his wrist burned like fire. He screamed. Nasima smiled, her face softening for a brief second. Now you are bound, doctor. You are mine. The chamber shook violently. Shelves toppled, jars shattered. Mehedi clutched the infant as the world spun, and then darkness. Dawn again. He awoke in the corridor once more. This time not outside 317, but at the very entrance of the East Wing, surrounded by confused staff. Why do you keep fainting here? A senior doctor snapped. If you can't handle night duty, go home. They walked away, muttering. No one believed what he had seen. Mehedi looked down at his wrist. The cut had deepened overnight, now blackened. Veins around it, spider webbing like ink. And in the silence of his mind, he heard the baby crying still, not distant this time, but inside him. The Haunted Hospital, Part 4 The vessel Mehedi stared into the cracked mirror of the abandoned staff bathroom. The face staring back wasn't his anymore. His skin had grown pale, veins black and pulsing across his cheeks. His eyes glowed faintly red, bloodshot from endless nights of torment. And the mark on his wrist. It was no longer just a mark hit, had spread across his arm like a tree of veins, crawling toward his chest. But the worst part was the sound. The baby's cry didn't just follow him, it came from his mouth. At times, he would speak to a patient, and halfway through, the words would warp into wailing. Colleagues looked at him with fear. Some whispered he was cursed. Others swore they saw a woman's shadow hovering behind him in the hallways. Mehedi wasn't just haunted. He was becoming the host. Collapse of the East Wing. It started on a Thursday. Patients in Ward 317 began convulsing at the same time, their eyes rolling white, mouths opening in unison. From each throat came the same shrill cry. The sound shook the walls until ceiling tiles rained down like broken teeth. Doctors rushed in, shouting for order, but order was impossible. The windows shattered inward, spraying glass like knives. Bedsheets tangled into ropes, binding patients to their mattresses as though unseen hands held them down. One nurse swore. She saw the outline of a woman walking through the ward, cradling a child wrapped in shadows. Wherever she stepped, blood spread across the floor like ink in water. By morning, the East Wing was abandoned. The hospital sealed it off. But Mehedi knew the ghost didn't care about walls. The police investigation the authorities came next. Uniformed men filled the lobby, rifles slung across their backs. They spoke of safety, of shutting down rumors. They questioned staff, took statements, even arrested Jalel the janitor, accusing him of spreading fear. But when they entered the East Wing, they never returned. An hour later, their radios crackled with screams. The building shook as gunfire erupted inside the sealed ward. And then silence. When a rescue team forced the doors open, they found the rifles melted, their barrels twisted into knots. The policemen's bodies were gone, only their boots left scattered across the blood-stained floor. The city papers called it a structural collapse, but the staff knew better. And Mehedi. He felt the wails echoing in his chest, stronger than ever. The infection of fear. The haunting spread beyond the hospital. Patients, families who had come to visit left in hysterics, swearing they heard babies crying in the parking lot. Ambulance drivers refused to approach the gates at night. Even the street vendors nearby packed up their stalls before dusk, muttering prayers under their breath. One night, Mehedi walked home and saw a child's stroller abandoned in the middle of the road. It rocked back and forth, though no wind blew. Inside was nothing but bloodied cloth. When he blinked, the stroller was gone. The curse was no longer confined to walls of concrete. It lived in the air, in the soil. In him, Jalel's warning. Weeks later, Jalel was released. His face had grown gaunt, his eyes sunken with terror. He found Mehedi sitting in the hospital courtyard, head in his hands. It's happening, Jalel whispered. The cycle. Every few decades, the spirit grows strong. She chooses a vessel. This time, his gaze dropped to Mehedi's arm, where the veins burned black. She's chosen you. Mehedi shook his head violently. No, I'm not her puppet. I'm not you don't understand, Jalel cut in. It's not revenge anymore. It's rebirth. She doesn't just want justice. She wants the child back. And she'll use your body to bring him into this world. Asterisk, the thought froze Mahedi's blood. A rebirth. A ghost finding flesh through him. The night of screams. Asterisk, that night. The hospital descended into madness. Asterisk, the power went out at midnight. Emergency lights flickered, dim red. Alarms wailed, but no one responded. Asterisk, Mahedi staggered through the hallways, clutching his chest as the cries inside him grew unbearable. Doors slammed shut on their own. Wheelchairs rolled across the corridors. The morgue refrigerator doors banged open, one after another. Corpses spilling onto the tiles with wide, unblinking eyes. Asterisk, the dead began to speak. In Nezima's voice. Asterisk, give me the child. Asterisk, doctors fled. Nurses screamed. Patients clawed their way out of beds, tearing out their IVs, following the phantom mother's call. The hospital was no longer a place of healing. It had become a cradle of the damned. Asterisk, and at the center stood Mahedi, the chosen vessel. The birth ritual. Asterisk, the mark on his arm spread across his chest that night, glowing in the dark like molten fire. His stomach twisted in waves of agony, as though something moved beneath his skin. Asterisk, he collapsed in the surgical theater, convulsing on the floor. His screams mixed with the baby's wails until the room vibrated with unholy resonance. Asterisk, Nezima appeared beside him, spectral yet solid, her hands pressing on his chest as though guiding labor. Asterisk, push, she whispered. Push, my son. Asterisk, Mahedi howled, feeling his ribs crack. Blood poured from his mouth, his nose, his eyes. He was giving birth not in flesh, but in spirit. The infant inside him clawed for freedom. Asterisk, doctors who tried to restrain him were hurled into walls, their bones shattering like glass. Instruments flew from trays, embedding into their throats. Blood rained from the ceiling. The hospital had become a delivery ward for the dead. Asterisk. The stillborn returns. Then came silence. Mahedi gasped, chest heaving. His body sagged as though emptied. Asterisk, in his arms lay the infant. Pale, bloodless, yet alive. Its tiny eyes opened, glowing red with the same hunger as its mother's. Asterisk, the crying stopped. The child smiled. Asterisk, every clock in the hospital froze at that moment. The building shook with a thunder that wasn't earthly. And then, one by one, the corpses in the morgue began to rise, kneeling toward the child as though it were king. Asterisk, Nezima's ghost leaned close to Mahedi, whispering into his ear. Asterisk, you did well. Now we are whole again. The final realization, but Mahedi saw something they did not. The child wasn't human. Its skin shifted like smoke, its face flickering between infant and monster. Its tiny hands gripped his shirt with strength no newborn should have. It wasn't rebirth. It was invasion, and he was its gateway. Terror seized him. If the child grew, if it walked among the living, the curse would spread beyond the hospital, beyond the city into the world. Asterisk, it wasn't vengeance anymore. It was a beginning. The Haunted Hospital. Part 5. The Echo Beyond the Walls. 1. The quiet that lied. Asterisk, for the first time in months. The hospital stood silent. Asterisk, the east wing no longer groaned. The morgue no longer whispered. The windows no longer bled. Asterisk, when the soldiers entered at dawn, Their boots echoed through desolate corridors. They found no survivors, only collapsed bodies, broken instruments, shattered lights. In the prayer room, they discovered Mahidi's corpse, laid out in a circle of salt. His face bore an expression no one expected. Relief. Asterisk, another casualty, muttered the captain, covering the body. We seal this place. Burn it, if we must. The nightmare is over. But the nightmare was not over. Silence was not peace. Silence was hiding. Asterisk, and beneath that silence, something waited. Asterisk, the first sign came as they carried Mahidi's body outside. His blood had dried black, yet when the sunlight struck his skin, faint red veins pulsed anew, as though something inside refused to rot. Asterisk, the second sign came that night, when soldiers stationed around the hospital began hearing cries. Not screams, not moans. Baby cries, soft, piercing, unrelenting. Some swore they came from the building. Others swore they came from the fields. And one man, trembling in his bunk, insisted the cries came from inside his own chest. Asterisk, by dawn, 3 soldiers were gone. Their boots remained. Nothing else. To Jalel in the shadows. Asterisk, no one saw Jalel leave the hospital. Some claimed he slipped through cracks in the walls. Others whispered he was never human at all. Asterisk, but Jalel was real. He walked the city's alleys now, a man carrying ash in jars, salt in bags, mirrors wrapped in cloth. His face was hollow, his body thin, yet his eyes burned. Asterisk, he had seen too much. He had seen Mahidi's sacrifice, seen the infant torn into smoke and bone, seen it crushed under the mirror. But he had also heard what came after, faint but certainly echo of another cry. Not killed but scattered. Asterisk, the child was gone from Mahidi's body, but not destroyed. It had bled into the city. Asterisk, Jal watched as neighbors argued more violently than before, their voices shifting mid-sentence into the cadence of wails. He saw mothers clutching empty strollers at night, rocking them though nothing lay inside. He saw shadows in the reflection of puddles. Shadows shaped like small hands. The curse was no longer tied to a hospital. It was loose. Asterisk, and Jalel realized with horror. The world had just become the new ward. 3. The families of the lost. Asterisk, news spread through the city like smoke. Official papers called the incident a containment failure. They blamed faulty wiring, collapsed beams, even chemical leaks. But families of the patients knew better. Asterisk, they had visited. They had heard, they remembered. At funerals, wails echoed louder than prayers. Coffins shook as though something inside wanted to crawl out. Children cried in their sleep, waking to scratch marks across their arms, as if grabbed by tiny fingers. The mothers were the first to feel it. One widow reported her baby monitor still picked up sound, though her child had been dead for months. Another woman screamed in the market, insisting she saw her miscarried daughter among the crowd, walking with eyes red as fire. Asterisk, the haunting had become personal. It no longer required walls. It lived in grief, in memory, in bloodlines, asterisk, and everywhere. The name began to spread. Nasima, for the return of the East Wing. Asterisk, 3 weeks later, the government ordered demolition of the hospital. Trucks arrived with explosives. Workers prepared charges, ropes, drills. But as they set foot in the east wing, the structure shifted. Dust rained from ceilings. The walls burned, cracked, sealed straightened before their eyes. Paint peeled backward into whiteness. Windows healed. Beds returned. The wing rebuilt itself. When the soldiers saw it, they fled. The workers dropped their drills. One brave man stayed long enough to photograph it. And the image later leaked an east wing restored to perfection, shining with unnatural cleanliness. But there were no people inside, only shadows. Rocking cradles, humming lullabies, the city panicked. If walls could resurrect, what else could return? 5. The inheritance of Mehdi *. Meanwhile, in the morgue of the military hospital, Mehdi's body refused to decay. Doctors argued over science, injected preservatives, ran tests. Nothing explained it. His veins glowed faint red, his skin cold but unrotted. Then came the night. A doctor leaned too close. Mehdi's mouth opened. Not with breath. Not with words. With a cry. The doctor collapsed, clutching his ears. His colleagues found him clawing his own chest, insisting something was inside. Trying to come out. By morning, he was gone. His clothes left behind. When they returned to the morgue, Mehdi's body was gone too. The sheet lay empty. Some said Jalal stole it. Others said it walked out. The truth was worse. 6. The city awakens. Within weeks, the city no longer slept. Night carried the sound of hundreds of cries. Some came from cribs. Some came from rooftops. Some came from the throats of grown men, speaking in voices not their own. Streetlights flickered with every wail. Dogs barked at shadows only they could see. Markets closed early. Prayer halls filled with desperate faces. The hospital stood at the center of it all. East wing glowing faintly at night like a lantern of blood. No one dared approach. Not even soldiers. The haunting was no longer legend. It was geography, and yet, amid the chaos, one figure moved with purpose. Jalal. He gathered others, gravediggers, midwives, priests. Survivors of the hospital. Men and women who had glimpsed the truth. They met in basements, in mosques, in abandoned factories. They carried salt, fire, mirrors, bones. They were not soldiers. They were not saints. They were survivors. And they had one mission: to stop the rebirth before it consumed the entire world. 7. The first rebellion. The rebellion began in the marketplace. 4 nights. Mothers reported seeing their dead infants walking between stalls, tugging at their dresses, whispering for milk. On the 4th night, the market collapsed into hysteria as dozens of shadows appeared, small, childlike, moving in unison. They climbed stalls, overturned carts, screamed in voices that shook glass. People fled, trampling one another. Jalal and his group arrived, with salt and mirrors. They drew circles across the ground, shouting chants older than the city itself. When shadows lunged, they were burned back by reflection. For hours, the fight continued, until dawn scattered the apparitions. The market was saved. But the people were not. Rumors spread of what Jalal had done. Some called him a saint. Others, a sorcerer. Authorities placed a bounty on his head. But mothers left food at his door, whispering blessings into the night. Asterisk, the city was dividing between those who denied and those who believed. 8. The ghost in the reflection. Asterisk, as fear spread, reflections betrayed the living. Asterisk, one woman combed her hair in a mirror, only to see a child behind her, giggling. When she turned, no one was there. Another man glanced at a shop window, only to watch his reflection cradle a baby he did not hold. Asterisk, even puddles became traitors. Step too close, and you might see yourself rocking a corpse. Asterisk, Mahdi's reflection returned to not in flesh, but in glass. Some swore they saw him walking corridors of mirrors, carrying the shadow child. His eyes glowed, his mouth twisted into a smile not his own. Asterisk, Jalel knew what it meant. The vessel's spirit was not free. Mahdi was still bound. And if his reflection walked, then Nasima's grip had not been broken. The war was far from over. 9. The last warning. One night, Jalel dreamed of Mahdi. Not reflection. Not ghost. Dream. Asterisk, they stood in the prayer room again, salt glowing around them. Mahdi looked tired, broken, but his voice was his own. Asterisk, she's spreading, he whispered. She's no longer tied to me. She's in the mothers, the fathers, the grief. She is reborn in sorrow itself. Asterisk, Jalel reached for him. Then how do we stop her? Asterisk, Mahdi's eyes darkened. You can't, you can only choose where she will rise next. Choose the vessel. If you fail, she chooses herself. Asterisk, the dream shattered. Jalel awoke screaming, sweat drenching his face. Asterisk, from that moment, he knew the battle had shifted. It was no longer about stopping rebirth. It was about controlling it. 10. The cry across the city. Asterisk. The climax came one night when the city itself screamed. Asterisk, every clock struck midnight. Every street lamp went out. And in perfect unison, every throat, man, woman, child released the sound of an infant crying. Asterisk, windows rattled. Doors burst. The ground trembled. The city had become the cradle. From the east wing of the hospital, a light erupted, brighter than fire, red as blood. Shadows streamed outward like rivers. They carried the form of Nasima, larger than the building itself. Her arms stretching across blocks, her veil blotting stars. Asterisk, and in her hands lay the child. Reborn, stronger, endless. Asterisk, Jalil stood on a rooftop, salt bag in hand, watching the apocalypse unfold. His heart clenched, but his voice rose against the storm. Asterisk, this is not the end, he whispered. This is the beginning of war. The Haunted Hospital. Part 7. Feet, the cradle cracks. -1. The calm before. 4 weeks after the station's fall. The city lived in uneasy quiet. Asterisk, the cries had stopped. The colossal shadow had gone. Asterisk, and for the first time in months, the sky was clear. Asterisk, survivors crawled from basements. Hospitals reopened. Schools welcomed trembling children back through their gates. The government declared the catastrophe a natural disaster, blaming sinkholes, gas leaks, even mass hysteria. Asterisk, but the people knew better. Asterisk, the silence felt wrong. Too thick, too heavy. It wasn't peace. It was waiting. Asterisk Amina, carrying the 3 orphaned children who clung to her as their only guardian, felt it strongest. Every night, she dreamed of Jalal's face, not the man she had fought beside, but the hollow, black-eyed version who had become a cradle for Nasima and the infant. She always woke to the same sound, not in the streets, not in the sky, but inside her own chest, a faint, muffled cry. 2. The first fractures asterisk. It began in small ways. Mirrors fogged without reason. Infants in hospitals refused to eat, their mouths opening as though waiting for something unseen. Asterisk mothers reported lullabies playing on old radios at night. Songs no one remembered recording. Then the survivors from the station started vanishing. One by one, they disappeared without a trace. Their homes found empty, doors unlocked, food still warm on plates. The only clue, shards of broken glass on their floors, faintly glowing in the moonlight. Amina knew what it meant. The prison was cracking. Jalal was slipping. 3. The black veins asterisk. One night, as Amina walked past the ruins of the old hospital, she saw something that froze her blood. Asterisk on the broken walls, black veins spread like roots, pulsing faintly. They crept across bricks, into the soil, climbing lampposts. The air smelled of iron and rot. Asterisk, and in the center of the rubble, she saw it, a circle of ash where Jalal had stood. It glowed faintly, like a dying ember. A whisper drifted through the air. "Help me." Her breath caught. It was Jalal's voice. Asterisk, she stepped closer, trembling. "Jalal, is it you?" Asterisk, the ash pulsed, and suddenly a face formed in the dust. His face cracked like broken porcelain, eyes black but wet with tears. Asterisk, she is breaking me, he gasped. I cannot hold her much longer. The child grows. Asterisk, the ash quivered violently, a faint infant cry rising from beneath the soil. Amina staggered back, clutching her chest. Asterisk, then, what do we do? She whispered. How do we stop it? Asterisk, Jalal's face twisted in agony. You cannot stop it, only delay it. But when it breaks, his voice shattered into screams. It will not be this city alone. It will be the world. Asterisk, and then the ash circle went dark. 4. The spreading plague asterisk within days. The city was infected, not with disease, but with sound. Everywhere, faint lullabies drifted, impossible to trace. In schools, children began humming songs they swore they had never learned. In hospitals, newborns refused to be calmed, their cries shaking glass in windows. And worse, the reflections returned. At first, just glimpses. A woman brushing her teeth swore she saw a black-eyed man holding a child in her bathroom mirror. A bus driver crashed when the windshield showed not the road, but a nursery of wailing infants. Then the attacks began. Shadows crawled out of puddles, mirrors, even polished steel. People were dragged screaming into their own reflections. Asterisk, the city declared martial law. Soldiers filled the streets, rifles in hand, but bullets could not kill shadows. Tanks rolled over them, only to vanish into pools of glass. Asterisk, the survivors whispered a single truth. The cradle was breaking. Asterisk 5. Amina's desperation. Asterisk, Amina searched the journals again, desperate for answers. Every night, she locked the children in a circle of salt and prayed they would survive one more day. Asterisk, the writings spoke of one last ritual, not of binding, but of erasure. Asterisk, it was said that if the first mother and first child could be silenced before their rebirth was complete, their curse would unravel. But the ritual demanded a price, the voice of the one who performed it. They would never speak again. Asterisk, Amina trembled. Could she do it? Could she silence herself forever to silence Nasima? She had no time to decide. For that night, the sky split. 6. The sky cradle asterisk over the city. Clouds tore apart as a colossal cradle of bone and shadow descended, rocking slowly in the sky. Inside it lay the infant, no longer newborn but the size of a grown man, its skin cracked with light, its eyes glowing red. Asterisk, Nasima towered beside it, veil trailing across the horizon. Her voice thundered. Asterisk, the world has forgotten our children. We will give it new ones. Asterisk, the cradle rocked, and every pregnant woman in the city screamed in agony. Their bellies swelled unnaturally, their unborn children kicking violently. Some collapsed, some wailed lullabies in voices not their own. Asterisk, the army fired rockets into the sky. They passed straight through the cradle as though it were mist. Asterisk, and then the infant laughed. The sound shook the earth. Asterisk. 7. Jalal's last stand. Asterisk, as chaos consumed the streets, Amina heard a voice inside her chest. Asterisk, come to me. Asterisk, she followed it to the ruins of the station. There, in the circle of ash, Jalal rose not whole, but broken. His body was cracked, smoke pouring from his wounds. His eyes were black, but within them flickered his old self. Asterisk, you cannot stop her, he whispered. But you can stop me. Break the vessel, and both I and she will fall for a time. Asterisk, Amina's heart shattered. I can't kill you. Asterisk, you must, Jalal said, his voice cracking. Or she will rise through me, and the world will burn. Asterisk, the children clung to Amina's legs, crying. Jalal reached out, his broken fingers trembling. Asterisk, please, end it. Before the cradle breaks completely. 8. The ritual of silence. Asterisk, Amina opened the journals, hands shaking. She traced the ritual of erasure. The price was her voice. She would never speak again, but it could silence Jalal, and through him Nasima. Asterisk, she lit the fires, drew the salt, held the talisman over her heart. Asterisk, Jalal stepped into the circle willingly, tears streaming. Thank you, he whispered. Asterisk, Amina began the chant. Her voice rang out over the ruins, carrying every ounce of her soul. With each word, shadows screamed. With each verse, Nasima's colossal form flickered. Asterisk, the infant in the sky wailed, cracks spreading across its glowing body. The cradle shook violently, bone splintering. Asterisk, Jalal screamed as his body tore apart, shadows exploding from him. His voice merged with hers, their cries blending, and then silence. Her voice was gone. Forever Jalal's body crumbled to ash. The cradle shattered. The infant dissolved into smoke. Asterisk. Nasima's colossal figure vanished. The sky went black, and then still. 9. The false dawn. The city wept with relief. The cries were gone. The reflections faded. Asterisk, people emerged from hiding, embracing one another, believing the curse was finally broken. But Amina knew better. She sat in the ruins, mute, the children clutching her arms. Her throat ached, her voice gone, but her mind still screamed. Asterisk, because in the shards of broken glass around her, she saw it. Asterisk the reflection of the infant smaller, now weaker, but alive. Asterisk it crawled inside the mirror, smiling. Asterisk and then she saw Jalel black-eyed, holding it once more. He whispered soundlessly, but she understood. The cradle will never die, only change. 10. The world trembles. Asterisk days later, reports flooded in from across the globe. In London, commuters swore they heard lullabies echoing in subway tunnels. In Cairo, mothers claimed their newborns laughed like grown men. Asterisk in Tokyo, entire office buildings vanished overnight, leaving only glass shards behind. Asterisk the curse had broken free of the city. The cradle had cracked, and now the world itself rocked in its arms. The silence Amina had given her voice for was already ending, and far away, across oceans, a faint cry rose into the night. Asterisk it was only the beginning.